Hello there and welcome. I'm Bob Proctor. I want to congratulate you for taking the time to come to this meeting. And I guarantee you at the end of it, if you keep your mind open and listen very carefully, you will be very glad that you've attended the meeting. Doug Dane he's one of the stars in our company. The Proctor Gallagher Institute operates all over the world and has for many, many years. We have consultants in something like 80 countries, teaching people information that is truly transformational. You can learn how to improve your income, your relationships. Just learn how to spend your days doing what you truly love to do. Let me tell you how all this came about. In 1961, I was going in the wrong direction and I was moving at a pretty fast pace. And a man gave me this book. And that's when my entire life started to change. He told me, he said, if you do exactly what I tell you, you can have anything you want. Now, I didn't believe that, but I believed he believed it. And so I started to listen. And I made up my mind I'd do exactly as he said. He said, Bob, if you will start investing time and money in yourself, you can build anything you want in your life. He said, we spend money on everything. Clothes, cars, planes, trains, plants for our yard, but we rarely invest in ourselves. Follow my direction and you will win. Well, 1 year later, I was earning $175,000 a year. In less than 5 years, I was working for myself. I had my own company. I was operating in Toronto, Montreal, Boston, Cleveland, Atlanta, and London, England. One day, it was almost like some kind of a euphoric experience, an enormous question loomed in my mind. What happened? And I couldn't tell you what happened. I had been raised to believe if you're going to earn a lot of money, you've got to be really smart. Well, I knew I wasn't that smart, but I was earning a lot of money. I was raised to believe if you don't go to school, you can't get a good job. Well, I hadn't gone to school. I went to high school for 2 months. I didn't have a good job. I owned the whole company. And so I thought, a lot of this information is not true. I'm not very smart. I earn a lot of money. You don't have to be smart to earn. And see, these thoughts were going through my head. And I thought, there's so many things that we believe that are not true. It's like an ancient philosopher said, it ain't what a man don't know that hurts him. It's what he knows that ain't so that hurts him. I knew a lot of things that just were not so. And I started to study. And everything in my life started to change. It took me 9.5 years to figure out how to connect the dots. And when I did figure it out, all I wanted to do was teach it to other people. And so we put together programs, organized programs, helping people get a real grasp on who they are, why they're doing what they're doing, and then how to do the thing they really want to do. We have found that the part of our mind that gathers information is not the part of their mind that controls behavior. Therefore, you have people walking around that are very bright, they have all kinds of information, but the results just aren't there. If you sit back and open your mind, you're going to find out why. And you're also going to find out how to change. I want to really strongly recommend that you make up your mind that you're going to listen. We hear with our ears, but we listen with our emotion. Let yourself get emotionally involved with the information that Doug is teaching you. He is one of the lead people in our company. We're very proud of him. And I believe in a very short period of time, you're going to be very happy that you have met him because he can show you how to take control of your life. The only corner of the universe you can improve is yourself. You can't change conditions, you can't change circumstances, and you cannot change other people as hard as we try. It can't be done. But we can change ourselves. And when we change ourselves, everything in a roadside world changes. So listen real carefully. And I believe you'll be glad you came here. And after Doug explains, make a decision. You're going to do what I did way back in 1961. Do exactly what he says. This is Bob Proctor, and thank you.
All right, we are here. I'm so excited to be here to do this with you guys over the next 3 days. We're going to spend about 30 minutes each day, 12:30 till 1 o'clock. So I'm glad you are here. So welcome to those of you that are here live with us through my Facebook page or group. And for those of you who end up watching this after the fact, I hope that you enjoy it. Francine, are you with us? You're here, I see.
I'm here. Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Good, good. I'm excited.
Me too.
Cool. Well, listen, here's what we're going to do. Francine's monitoring the Facebook group. So if you have any comments or questioning like that, you can throw them in. And if we have time at the end, we will try to address them. I don't mind staying on for a few minutes after 1 o'clock. If you want to stick around for some questions, we'll do that for sure. I'm going to end the presentation at 1, but I don't mind hanging around for a little bit after that. So Francine's going to monitor that, and we will dive right into it. So thanks for being here, Francine. Thanks for helping. And let's do this, okay?
All right.
All right. Well, you know, when I started this journey with Bob Proctor, this book, Think and Grow Rich, I actually got it when I was 23 years old. I was working in a tire factory at the time in Kitchener, Ontario, making tires. I left my first job at McDonald's and also working at a gas station to get a job to make some money in a factory. And I sat there for 3 years thinking, this is not how I want to spend my days. I watched my dad as I was growing up work in a factory, and he became a crippled arthritic. And he didn't get very far. Both my parents had a pretty rough life. And I went through a pretty rough life as a kid. So I just wanted to make some money. I met this guy, and we ended up getting into business together, and he gave me this book. And I remember I wrote on a goal card that I was going to make $1 million by the time I was 25. So I was 23 at the time. And by 25, I was going to acquire $1 million, because it said in this book, it talked about there's a secret in the book, and it's mentioned no less than 100 times. If you figure out the secret, you'll be swept onto riches. And so anyway, 25 years old, I went bankrupt. I had 2 businesses, a perfume company and a tanning salon, and they both failed. And I ended up going bankrupt, claiming bankruptcy. And then I landed on my feet. I got into another business. I got into the mortgage industry, which I ended up spending over 25 years in. And when I started that, my first year in the business, I made $17,000, and I had racked up another $40,000 in debt. And I couldn't figure out how to earn money. I'm going, what the heck's going on here? Because I'm reading the book and nothing's happening. And then a guy came into my office or our office, and he put a little presentation. There was a guy named Bob Proctor who had been studying this book at the time for maybe, I don't know, probably 25 years, I guess, 30 years at the time. And he had a book called You Were Born Rich and a program called You Were Born Rich. And I thought, if I could just make some money, I'd be happy. So I borrowed the money from a guy in my office for the ticket, and I went down to a weekend event in Toronto at York University, and that just changed everything. I figured out why I couldn't earn money, even though I was reading this book, Think and Grow Rich. And I went back and I made a decision. I was going to be the top mortgage broker with our company in Canada. And I called myself Diamond Doug. There was a diamond pin. You got a pin. You got a trip to Bahamas, and you got dinner with the chairman of the company. And so I decided that that's what I was going to do. And that year, I went to the top of the company in the country, and I was the #1 guy with my company in the mortgage industry. And I owe it all to what I learned at that event. And then I started studying this information. Now, I got to admit, I went a long time. I figured out how to make money, but I was still really struggling in different areas of my life. I couldn't quite figure out why. I was really struggling with anxiety, depression, self-image, a bunch of internal emotional stuff. I figured out later why I was. I just uncovered a story from when I was a little boy that had been blocked out of lots of emotional, physical violence and trauma and abuse. And so that explained a lot. That came out in 2001, I guess. My story was on the front page of the newspaper, and I was on television and in books, and I was doing speaking about it. And so that figured out some more stuff. But even then, I still was kind of struggling. So it wasn't until about 6 years ago, I was near the end of my career in my mortgage industry. I didn't want to be in anymore. I was really good at it. It was good to me. I earned a lot of money, but I wasn't really passionate about it. I wasn't enjoying what I was doing. And so anyway, I watched the movie The Secret again. I'd seen it before. when it first came out. And Bob comes on and he starts talking, and all this stuff that I had remembered from when I went to the seminar all came flashing back. And so I've got the privilege and the benefit of working directly with Bob. When I started working with them 6 years ago as a client, studying as a student of Procter Gallagher Institute, a year later, I made my mind up that I wanted to be in business with Bob and teaching this information because it had a profound impact on my life. And so I made a decision to do that just over 5 years ago in 2014. And in 4 short months, I had set a goal earlier that I wanted to be the top guy in his company and working with him, not just for him, but with him. And so within 4 months, I was able to do that. And I got the position I've held now for coming on 5 years in September as the international director for their consulting division. And so Bob is really the last living person with his legacy of Think and Grow Rich. So the guy on the right-hand side, that's Andrew Carnegie, who commissioned the man beside him, Napoleon Hill, the author of this book, to spend a good part of his life, over 20 years, 25 years, in fact, researching successful people to figure out, what made them successful. And Carnegie had his laws of achievement. He wanted he wanted this information to go to the world, to get to the world before he was gone. And so he picked Napoleon Hill to do that work, and he did just that. The next guy, Earl Nightingale, he was mentored by Napoleon Hill. In fact, he took Think and Grow Rich to the airwaves, and he was on 1,000+ U.S. radio stations with his radio show, and he was reading Think and Grow Rich. And that's ultimately how Bob met Earl. Bob sought out Earl Nightingale. Earl Nightingale's company literally founded and started the personal development industry back in the early 50s and 60s. And so Bob sought him out after being introduced to Think and Grow Rich. And many of you, if you know Bob, you of course heard his story of Raymond Stanford. And Bob worked for Earl Nightingale for 5 years and then went on to dedicate his life to teaching this information that he was learning and how it was impacting his life and the people of those around him. And so Bob has carried on this legacy. And there's 2 programs that Procter Gallagher Institute has that have created. So Thinking Into Results, a lot of my clients are on this call in our Facebook group. And so they've all gone through the Think Into Results program. It's a 6-month program where all the principles and everything you need to learn how to implement this is laid inside of Thinking Into Results. And then just recently, earlier this year, Bob released with some people that had filmed the Think and Grow Rich movie. The film version, if you haven't seen that, it's a phenomenal film. And they came back and said, hey, Bob, there's nobody better on the planet that really understands the secret in this book and how to apply it and how to use it. There's nobody better than you. And so they asked him if he would film a series. And so it's called Living the Legacy, where Bob takes you through each one of the principles that are in this book and how to apply it. And anyway, so it's a phenomenal program, and I'm just very privileged to be able to work with Bob. So the mere reading of this book will not cause you to succeed. People often ask me, or I'll ask them, have you read the book? And they say, oh, I've read it. When did you read it? I go, oh, I read it, a few years back. I said, how many times have you read it? They said, well, maybe once or twice. This is not a book that you read, folks. This is a book that you study. And you really have to master the 13 principles of success. And I remember, I always heard Bob say that he figured if Napoleon Hill dedicated his life to researching this book and putting it together, Bob was going to dedicate his life to studying it. And when I heard him say that, I figured, all right, well, if he's dedicated his life to studying, and at the time it was, 50+ years, he'd been reading this book every single day and teaching the principles and the secret inside the book. I figured if all the success that he's enjoyed and all success that he's created all around the world, it'd probably be prudent of me and a good idea for me to follow his advice and his instructions. So I studied this book very, very carefully. This is like my book, meaning this is the one book that has probably the biggest impact on me, and I continue to study it every day. And so as I was studying it and getting into that legacy series with Bob and watching him teach it in a way I've never seen him teach before, I thought I want to do this series with you guys and share this with you, what I've learned in my own way, and take you through how to think and grow rich and the secret inside this book. So let's get into it. We're only going to cover a few of the principles this morning. And we're going to cover most of the book over the course of the 3 days. The biggest problem I've discovered is most people, number one, don't know how to earn money because they weren't taught how to earn money. They were taught, go get a job, go to school, get a job, and work hard, and that's how you'll earn a living. Very few schools teach us how to get into business, and they certainly don't teach us the principles of how earning money works. Money is earned, there's exact laws and principles and guidelines that govern how much money you earn, and we were never taught that, so you need to learn that. Also, we've all met those people, maybe you included, who, you drop the weight and you constantly put it back on again. You drop the weight and you constantly put it back on again. And people can't seem to figure out how to make permanent change or permanent habits that stick. And the other thing that most people suffer from is what's called the knowing doing gap. We know that we could be doing better. We know there's things that we should be doing and we're not doing them, but yet we can't seem to close the knowing doing gap. We don't even know what the knowing doing gap is, let alone what the cause is and how to change it. And so inside this book, Think and Grow Rich, reveals all the answers. And this is a data collection, folks. This is not a fiction or an opinion. Napoleon Hill spent 25 years interviewing 25,000 people to formulate these principles and roll it into the laws of success, or what he finally called Think and Grow Rich. And so the introduction of the book talks about Edward C. Barnes, who wanted to go work for Thomas Edison. I won't spoil the story for you if you've not read the book, but Barnes was just a regular guy, and he had made up his mind that he wanted to work for Thomas Edison. And Edison had said, I saw he had made up his mind and he was going to stand by until he succeeded. Edison said, it's what he thought that had counted. It's what he thought that counted. And it says here, if the significance of this statement could be conveyed to every person who reads it, there'd be no need for the remainder of this book. It was what he thought that counted. And so it gets into Barnes' story. And there's a few highlights I have here for myself. It says, an intangible impulse of thought can be transmuted into its physical counterpart by the application of known principles. Now, we weren't taught how to really understand how our mind works with infinite intelligence, God, the universe, to take an idea that's in our mind or in our heart and make it into a physical reality. But everything that was ever created started in somebody's mind. And we've got this beautiful gift, our mind, and we probably be a good idea to figure out how it works. And so he explains here how to take an idea, a desire, and transmute it into its physical equivalent. So let's take a look at desire real quick. Starting point of all achievement, the first step towards riches. So to achieve anything, you need a burning desire. So you've got to create a burning desire for whatever your goals or your wants are. Okay, so whatever it is you're shooting for, you've got to create a burning desire. You've got to get yourself to a white heat of desire, whip yourself in a white heat of desire for what it is you want, your definite purpose, or what he called your definite chief aim in life. And so these are just a couple points from the book. These are my highlights. He says, you can never have riches in great quantities unless you work yourself into a white heat of desire for money and actually believe you will possess it. Okay? There's a difference between wishing for a thing and being ready to receive it. No one's ready for a thing until he believes he can acquire it. The state of mind must be belief, not mere hope or wish. And so it's essential. You have to believe. And that leads to the next principle, which we're going to talk about in a moment, which is faith or belief. And you'll see, if you really study this closely, you'll see how all the principles link together. It's like a recipe. It's like a formula. You got all the ingredients. Okay, you've got to assemble them, and you have to use them properly. He said, open-mindedness is essential for belief. Closed minds do not inspire faith, courage, and belief. And so one thing is you really got to open up your mind. So many people are selling so many things online through webinars and seminars and online programs. I think we've really become so closed-minded to, the really great stuff that's out there that can really help you. And you have to have an open mind. And you got to take a look at your beliefs. Now, Bob often says, I love what he says, he goes, oftentimes people don't believe things they don't understand, or they tend to ridicule or criticize things they don't understand. And so if you don't understand, if you don't have the awareness, if you're ignorant to the understanding of how this book and these principles work, you need to really begin to study this. Remember, no more effort is required to aim high in life, to demand abundance and prosperity than is required to accept misery and poverty. So it doesn't take any more effort to become successful and enjoy time and money freedom than it does to remain where you are if you're accustomed to misery and poverty. Through some strange and powerful principle of mental chemistry, which she's never divulged, nature wraps up in the impulse of strong desire, quote unquote, that's something which recognizes no such word as impossible and accepts no such reality as failure. And the one thing I discovered is, guess what? You don't have to know how to achieve what it is you want to achieve. I got so locked into thinking I had to know how to do something before I decided to actually do it. And he reveals a little bit more as we go through these chapters how the how actually shows up, because so many of us tend to just overthink and procrastinate and wait for the plans or ideas or the people, the money or whatever to show up. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff at this point. All you got to do is just figure out what you want and whip yourself into a white heat of desire. So the second principle is faith, visualization of and belief in attainment of your desire. And so he said earlier in desire, you have to have an absolute belief. So he talks here about how to develop faith. So if you don't believe in what it is you're trying to do, or the idea, the picture in your mind of what it is you want to create, if you don't believe it, you can create it. He says, there comes now a statement which will give a better understanding of the importance the principle of autosuggestion assumes in the transmutation of desire into its physical or monetary equivalent. Namely, faith is a state of mind which may be induced or created by affirmation or repeated instructions to the subconscious mind through the principle of autosuggestion. And so autosuggestion is simply self-suggestion, the repetition of self-suggestion. By following the instructions laid down in the chapters on autosuggestion and the chapter on the subconscious mind, which we're going to talk about later, you may convince the subconscious mind that you believe you will receive that for which you ask. And it will act upon that belief, which your subconscious mind passes back to you in the form of faith, followed by definite plans for procuring that which you desire. So what he's saying here is through the repetition of self-suggestion, you can trick, induce, or create in your subconscious mind a belief. And we always act on our beliefs. We only do things that we believe that we can do or we know we can do. And so the self-suggestion, the autosuggestion, then creates the belief, and then you start to act. And you act on that belief, and through your action and the law of cause and effect, you get a reaction which passes back to you in the form of faith, and then followed by definite plans for procuring that which you desire. And so what you have to realize is that if you're trying to figure out how to get to your goal, how to make something happen, you're not going to get the plans to procure the desire, okay, unless you start moving towards it and make a crystal clear committed decision that that's what you're going to do. You won't get the plans. If you're just thinking about something you're going to do, you're not going to get the plans, because you don't need the plans until you decide that that's what you're going to actually do. So let's get into autosuggestion. And we're going to wrap up. We're going to wrap up here for today, and then we'll get more deeply into the book over the next couple of days. So, autosuggestion is the medium for influencing the subconscious mind. It's the third step towards riches. I love this picture. It's basically the kitty cat talking himself into the lion. So, autosuggestion is a term which applies to all suggestions which reaches one's mind through the five senses. Okay, so we primarily live through our five senses. And so all suggestions come in through the five senses. People say things, we see things, we hear things, we read things. Our parents told us things, our spouse tells us things. Things are drilled into you at a very young age through repetition. He says the agency of communication between the part of the mind where conscious thought takes place and that which serves as a seat of action for the subconscious mind. And so this is the knowing doing gap, folks. So the knowing part of your mind is your conscious mind, where the information comes in and you think. That's the knowing part. The doing part is at the subconscious mind, which he says serves as the seat of action. And so you've got to get this drilled into you at a subconscious level, because that's the seat of action. It's your subconscious mind that causes this thing, your body, to move into action. And through the dominating thoughts, which one permits to remain in the conscious mind, whether these thoughts be negative or positive is immaterial. The principle of autosuggestion voluntarily reaches the subconscious mind it influences with these thoughts. And Bob's also oftentimes quoting Andrew Carnegie. He said, any idea that's held in the mind, that's feared or revered, will begin to clothe itself in the most convenient and practical form available. And so whatever you're thinking, whether it's positive or negative, okay, your subconscious mind is going to go to work following these principles, these laws, to make it a practical reality in your physical world. So you better be careful what you're thinking about. And what we've discovered, and Bob discovered, is most people don't think. And that's what we teach you how to do. So we really teach you how your mind works, how to put all these principles together inside Think and Grow Rich, and how to think into the results that ultimately that you want to get and change the results that you're getting. Stated differently, he said, all sense impressions which are perceived through the five senses are stopped by the conscious thinking mind, and they can either be passed on to the subconscious mind or rejected at will. The conscious faculty serves, therefore, as an outer guard to the approach of the subconscious. So as information comes at you from the five senses, they're stopped at your conscious thinking mind, and you have the ability to reject those thoughts. Now, most of us don't think, and ideas just go right into our mind, into our subconscious mind. So your conscious mind is inductive. It has the ability to accept or reject ideas. Your subconscious mind is completely deductive. It cannot reject any ideas. Any ideas that reach it through the conscious mind automatically influence you. Okay, so the conscious faculty serves as an outer guard. And so you want to start guarding and owning your mind. Be careful what you're allowing in from other people and through your five senses, and start drilling into your mind what it is you want through the process of autosuggestion. Nature so built man, he has absolute control, I love this, over the material which reaches his subconscious mind. Although this is not meant to be construed as a statement that man always exercises this control. All right? So we have absolute control over guarding our subconscious mind, but it doesn't mean that you're actually exercising that control. No thought, whether it be negative or positive, can enter the subconscious mind without the aid of the principle of autosuggestion, with the exception of thoughts that are picked up from the ether. And so he concludes here, and this is really, really important, folks. This is how you figure out how to get to the goal. Do not wait for a definite plan through which you intend to exchange services or merchandise in return for the money you're visualizing. Just begin at once to see yourself in possession of the money, demanding and expecting. If you understand how your mind works, you can demand and expect that your subconscious mind will hand over the plan or plans you need. It's this understanding and awareness of how your mind works and how the how shows up, which we're going to talk about in the creative imagination chapter in the subconscious mind as well. Be on alert for these plans, and when they appear, put them into action immediately. Don't procrastinate. Don't put them off. Don't ask for advice or opinions. Just act on them immediately. Because when these plans appear, they'll probably flash into your mind through the sixth sense in the form of an inspiration. This inspiration may be considered a direct telegram or a message from infinite intelligence. Treat it with respect and act upon it as soon as you receive it. Failure to do so will be fatal to your success. Okay? So guys, listen. For today, what I really want you to think about is guarding your mind. And I want you to think about what you are self-suggesting. Right? If you're not automatically or consciously suggesting positive thoughts and positive ideas, then unconsciously and automatically you're taking in negative ideas and thoughts, or you have negative ideas and thoughts in your mental program that are just playing over and over. You're always affirming, you're always auto-suggesting. Right? So you got to take a proactive approach to what is your auto-suggesting. So make sure you're auto-suggesting, self-suggesting your goals, self-suggesting your beliefs that you want to have to get to the goal, self-suggesting, your self-image and your self-confidence. You got to consciously be affirming all the time. Otherwise, automatically, unconsciously, you're affirming things that you don't want. So listen, I want to thank you for joining the first call. I want to welcome you into my Facebook group. I'm very committed and determined to sharing this information to as many people as I can. There's so many people out there that just don't have access to this. And so in my Facebook group, we're creating content and different kinds of calls like this and different ways to share information with you. And so if you like this call, get on the Facebook group, or you're in the Facebook group rather, share it with your friends, invite them in, invite them to the call, or just invite them into the group. And I promise you, and I'm committed to delivering great value and to helping as many people as I can. So again, I want to thank you for being on the call today. And we're going to be back here tomorrow at 12:30 sharp Eastern Standard Time. So That is it, Francine. If anybody has any questions or comments they want me to address, I can stay on for a few minutes before we wrap up the call.
Yes, we do have one question that came in from Sarath Kumar Revenur. I hope I pronounced that right. He's asking, how do I get emotionally involved with my want to translate it to desire?
Faith. He talks about that in the faith chapter. If you read the faith chapter over and over, I was flying down to Las Vegas for the July long weekend for Bob's 85th birthday. And I was on the plane, and I was thinking about what I want to ask Bob. And whenever I meet him, I'm always paying close attention to what I'm going to ask him. And I said, I was thinking, I didn't grow up with a whole lot of faith or sort of a spiritual, relationship or any sort of relationship with God. Didn't go to church, any of that stuff. And I know that there's a spiritual side to this equation. And so I'm going to ask Bob about what does one do in the absence of, having, faith or spirituality or, relationship with God. And as I was thinking about that question, the conversation, I grabbed Think and Grow Rich on my briefcase on the plane, and I started reading the faith chapter. And oh my gosh, it's amazing how when you ask good questions, you get good answers. I opened up that chapter and I started seeing things I hadn't seen before. Like it's covered in highlights now. It's unbelievable. Let me just see if I can find something here that really kind of hit me. But he talks about that in the chapter about how to build up your burning desire through faith. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Well, I love this part right here. He goes, faith is the eternal elixir which gives life, power, and action to the impulse of thought. Faith is the starting point of all accumulation of riches. Faith is the basis of all miracles and all mysteries, which cannot be analyzed by the rules of science. Faith is the only known antidote for failure. Faith is the element, the chemical, which when mixed with prayer gives one direct communication with infinite intelligence. Faith is the element which transforms the ordinary vibration of thought created by the finite mind of man into spiritual equipment. Faith is the only agency through which the cosmic force of infinite intelligence can be harnessed and used by man. He talks about in here that it's through the use of faith, the repetition, you will whip yourself into a white-heated desire. So and I found that before with different goals, I'm not emotionally involved in the beginning. And we just tell our clients, just keep on writing your goal, keep affirming it over and over and over and over. They go, how long? I go, until you set yourself up into a white-heated desire. And it works. It really, really does. I didn't believe it worked, but it does. So it's in the faith chapter.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
All right. Anything else before we go?
No, I just took a quick scan here, and I don't see any more questions coming in for now.
All right, great. Well, listen, thanks, Francine, for being here, for helping. And thank you for jumping on here live today. And again, if you're watching the recording, I hope you'll join us tomorrow at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. And over the next couple of days, we're going to dive deeper into this book and reveal the secret in Think and Grow Rich. So have a great day, everybody. Talk soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.